So, I hope I didn't hang up on you. Zeke, are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay, good. So that's
yeah. That was that. That's why is bad news always so depressing?
The point that
I sometimes stroll the Castro at night when there's hardly anyone around, late at night, and I pretend that I'm in the past, and I imagine all the houses are gone, and there's just natives there, and there's just sand dunes and stuff, and what they're doing at night, hunting or getting around a little fire and talking or whatever. Did you know that when white man came to the area known as Emeryville, there are natives north and natives south and natives inland, but there are none in, like, I don't know, about 20, 30 square mile area. No human inhabitants. And you know why?
No, why?
Because the bears outnumber the humans 10 to 1 in that area, so the bears ran the show.
Oh, the bears, right.
Yes.
Okay.
I thought it would be a nice little factoid to throw in.
Well, that's nice to know. It isn't all human on human violence. It's bears too. So you've written.
That's when their technology did not give. We didn't have the technology to give us.
But the bears had the technology. There was a science fiction story that reminds me of. It's called Bears Discover Fire, and I remember the last time I went looking for it, I found it on the web and could read it. You might write that down and look for it. I can't remember exactly who wrote it, but it's a beautiful, sad, quiet little story, and probably there's only one science fiction story in all the world titled Bears Discover Fire, and you'll have no trouble finding it.
Was their leader called Smokey?
No, nothing about that. It's a science fiction story.
I know. I'll look it up.
Okay, so you've got a story that you told me about it. I don't remember the title of it. Do you want to just read it now?
Sure. All right. This was written in May of 2013. In memory of Don Walls, a really good friend who was homeless for almost 7 years, before hooking up with Constance and moving to Sonora around 6 years ago. She phoned me this past Tuesday, May 21, to tell me the horrid news that he recently passed away. Sadly, he inherited his father's tendency for bad health and bad habits, high cholesterol and drinking too much booze and eating junk food. This is a true story that I've been meaning to write down for quite a while. Now comes the time. And the title is Skin in the Box. Well, some years back, I guess 1997, Don drops over with his sweet pit bull boxer mix named Babe, which doggie I helped raise as Don is homeless and therefore can't be there for her every single moment of the day. So I whine, as usual, to Don about how impossible it seems to find a decent gay man that I could have a nice friendship with, forget about I love her. Well, his sympathy inspires him to look around. Just 2 days later, he returns with Babe in tow to inform me. I know this really great guy named Chris who told me he'd be very interested in getting to know you. Well, what does he look like, I query. Is he at least somewhat handsome? I think he is, professes Don. Can I bring him over tomorrow night so you can check him out? Of course, I replied. That sounds like a great plan. So the next night around 9 p.m., Don brings him over. I find Chris to be terribly handsome, even with his balding shock of golden blonde hair. He is about 36. I am at that time 47. He is modest in appearance, but nicely built. Dark blue eyes framed in round wire rims, well-formed shoulders and arms, trim waist and a tight round butt, and a basket that didn't hide its amber girth beneath chocolate twill slacks. In other words, boner material. So we talk a while about rather neutral things until he announces he needs to get home before his roommates show up from their respective jobs. It is better, he says, that all housemates hit the sack around the same time. else no one gets any sleep. And here I was about to unzip those pants and start tonguing that juicy wanger into hard bliss. Shortly after Chris departs, Don returns, and I tell him that I'm impressed. So please give Chris my number, that we may arrange our next get-together. Chris shows up 3 nights later with a bottle of sparkling rosé. I provide the pot, and we are soon on the road to mutual orgasm. But something blocks the way. Don't know what it is, but Chris suddenly pulls up his boxer briefs and slacks, exclaims he must leave right now to tend to important business, even though he's barely been over for 45 minutes. So I say, okay, and he departs for places unknown. I jerk myself off. I am that turned on. I could still taste his fat crown and shaft upon my eager tongue hours later. 2 days later, Dawn returns with lovely Babe, who quickly runs to my bedding and curls herself up in blissful rest to ask how it went with Chris. So I tell him, not so well. We seem to be hitting it off when all of a sudden he felt compelled to leave, I reveal. But thanks just the same for trying to brighten my world. Dawn clears her throat and begins to confide. Guess I need to tell you about my association with Chris when we were housemates 2 to 4 years ago. Okay, I agree. Tell me. At that point, we are mightily stoned on some kick-ass ganja, and I was ready for a good tale, though not one so fraught with terror as the story he is about to tell. I lived with Chris from 94 to late 96. We had 3 of the housemates. This was in a flat now part of the Intermission projects around 14th Street in Guerrero. So one night when I got home, all the roommates were there except Chris. They were gathered around the kitchen table over a cardboard box that sat on the table and was partly open in spite of the bold printing that declared, "Do not open." Interesting, I interjected. Do go on. Well, my housemates were trembling as I reached for the box and opened it. Yeah, I goaded while totally snockered on some of the best weed I've smoked in a long time. So I opened the box to discover what looked like the human skin of a middle-aged male folded up. How did you know it was folded up? I challenged, though starting to shake from fear. Well, hey, can you hear me there?
I'm still here. I'm sorry. I've got a guest in here, and he's telling me a story.
Okay, because it's hard for me to talk. I hear your voices.
You do?
Coming through at the same time. All right.
I'm sorry. I get it. I'm sorry. I'm explaining to you what's happening. When you can hear my voice on your phone because of a. It's hard for me to describe without you seeing it, but the people at home can't hear my voice. And I understand that I'm messing up your ability to read by talking, and so I'm going to stop talking.
It's difficult.
It's a fellow has come in, and he was telling me a story, and I was just I have to shut up here and let you finish your story. Have you got much more of it? Another page or two?
5 minutes.
All right. Well, look at I'm gonna not say anything in here because I can't really easily shut off what's happening in this room from your ears. And I know what it feels like when you're trying to read aloud and somebody is talking behind you. And I hate that when people do that to me, so I'm going to stop doing it to you. Okay, so you go ahead and finish.
It just makes it very difficult.
Finish your story. Just allow me to apologize. Take it from the paragraph before you left off. Okay, all right. I lived with Chris from 94 to late 96. We had 3 other housemates. This was in a flat now part of the Intermission projects around 14th Street in Guerrero. So one night when I got home, all the roommates were there except Chris. They were gathered around the kitchen table over a cardboard box that sat on the table and was partly open in spite of the bold printing that declared, "Do not open." Interesting, I interjected. Do go on. Well, my housemates were trembling as I reached for the box and opened it. Yeah, I goaded, while totally snockered on some of the best weed I've smoked in a long time.
So I opened the box to discover what looked like the human skin of a middle-aged male folded up. How did you know it was folded up? I challenged, though starting to shake from fear. Well, I carefully unfolded it to discover the skin of a dude about 5'10", including the testicle sac and anus on the opposite side. So it was a real skin, I goaded? So it seemed. I folded up the skin and placed it back in the box and in the refrigerator where my housemates discovered it. And then what, Don? Next morning, I confronted Chris to ask him what's up with the box. Oh, you weren't supposed to see it, declared Chris. I'm a member of the Suicide Club, and my initiation was to steal a human skin from a funeral parlor. I'm sorry if the box upset you. You weren't supposed to open it. Well, continued Don as I start to freak out, all three housemates quickly moved to other residences except myself. I lingered on for a few more weeks. Well, how did you keep in association with Chris after that, I queried. Very cautious, he replied. We never spoke to each other after that, except to plan next week's groceries. A certain rage grew in my heart after hearing that ghastly tale, and I accused, Don, get the fuck out of here. How dare you introduce me to a potential boyfriend knowing all the time he's a fucked-up grave robber, or worse? I further lecture. You need to see a priest, perhaps Father Young from the Holy Redeemer. How on earth could you keep such a scary revelation harbored in your soul for so many years? You need help and advice that I can never do for you on my own. Other than that, get the hell out of my room, now. I am most upset that he turned me onto some really high-grade pot before telling me this ghoulish tale, turned my euphoric high into a nightmare of astounding proportion. But I was already stoned out of my skull, helpless to find solid ground. He then grabs his pup's leash and excuses himself in record time. A few days later, I decide to question Chris about this by calling him up. Hello, Chris here, he answers. Hey, Chris, this is Zeke. A mutual friend of ours, Don, invited you over to my place about a week ago. I enjoyed your company, but you had to leave early for some reason. Oh, yeah, I remember. Sorry about that, but I did have a really nice time, and I would like to see you again very soon. Well, that's nice, I agree, but first I must ask you something Don told me after you left. Okay, what's that? He said that he and your roommates discovered a strange box that you put in the fridge, and they opened it to discover a human skin totally intact. Chris starts to choke, but finally replies, You think everything Don says is true? No, I do not, I respond, but his story is so disturbing I just had to ask. Next thing I know, there's a sudden click on the phone, and we are disconnected. I've seen Chris 2 times since then, both times within 3 years of our initial meeting. Each time our paths crossed, he scurried to the other side of the street before I had a chance to confront him. Otherwise, he has completely disappeared from my world. Yet here it is, almost 16 years later, without any resolution to the eerie tale. Don and I have had many adventures, most of them good. But 2 times in our friendship, they were very, very bad. This is one of them. I will save a future time to tell the other bad tale. It will make your skin crawl beyond this present confession, whether it's in a box or not. The end.
Okay, if everything works right, then you can hear me now. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
fine.
Good. Jerry showed me how to turn off my being able to interrupt you by having voices come in your ear when you're trying to read. I didn't know how to do that before, but now I do, and I'll keep that in mind. I'm so embarrassed that I didn't know how to do something so simple. So, interesting.
Live and learn. You got some new technology that you're still playing around with.
Live and learn. That's a fact. You certainly do that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there anything is there happening in your life that you might want to talk about for a couple of minutes before I go back to whatever I was doing before you called?
Well, things are working out very well with Zach and his dog. So for me, it was like being crushing the vines, worrying about him, how he's going to deal with it. So I just had to learn to relax and not be that worried, and everything worked out very well. And his cousin showed up and gave us support, and it's going to be a great story to write about.
So the dog gets The dog gets the problem was that he wasn't following through on getting the dog fixed.
He hasn't done that yet, but he has been listening, and it was a great visit last night. Well, by visit I mean outdoors, outside my building. And I commended him, and what a great job he did on raising that dog. I mean, the dog is just so happy. I mean, he is trained it very well, and he's just totally kind to him. And I ordered from Amazon a bungee cord dog leash and harness, detachable harness. He wants to put him in that, and then some dog toys for big dogs who like to chew really hard. A collection of that.
I think it's interesting that your neighborhood has even more sirens than Juanita's neighborhood, which is weird because Juanita's lives like a block away from the fire department and 2 blocks away from the police department.
Well, it's a small town, though, right?
Yeah, but it's there are towns all around, and they spread out and they help each other. They like to hive up and give support and have.
Oh, this city's just going nuts. It's going insane. Is all what's going on here, and the noise is part of it.
What do you mean? Why is it particularly insane these days?
Oh, it's been going downhill for quite a few years. I'd say it's happening to every city. More and more crazy people, more crazy people per square block and stuff like that. Run into them more. You never know whether they're going to lash out or what. Get on the buses. Big tragedy about to happen in this country. A few more superstorms and more people losing their jobs. We just baby step away from some incredible chaos.
Yeah, remember a few years ago? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Signs are there. Signs are there. Well, they've been building up for years.
I was just going to say that it seems like just a few years ago, the things that we tended to bitch about to each other, not you and I, because I didn't know you years ago, but the little things that would come up were things like there was a website where you could get used books very cheaply, and then a giant website bought all of those particular booksellers that were sort of put them out of business, and now you can't find these. Like you used to be able to look up some bitchin' old book that you never thought you'd see again, and somebody would have it in Kuala Lumpur or Visalia, and you can still order it, but you're ordering it through a giant company, and amazingly it's not cheaper.
No. We can make this a wonderful world. It's just a matter of restructuring and egalitarianism, and it's just such bullshit. What's going on?
Now it's how many dozens of people got shot last week in a school?
Yeah, I know. It's something else, and up here in the West Coast, at least the northern half, we've been having it pretty lucky, but something's going to happen, to include this region. And
did you read that Trump it's the reporters asked him. He said something about the military situation, talking to the military people that he has to talk to because he's the head of the frickin' military. Can you imagine just that this guy is the head of the commander-in-chief of the military, and something's going to happen. Something's going to happen, and somebody asked him, what do you mean? Something's going to go really wrong. Something's going to be. He said, what do you mean? He says, you'll see.
As Terence McKenna, rest his soul, said that we're hominids. We say hominids. We just say we're apes. So, a similar word. We're apes, and as hominids always wait to the very, very last moment before they get their act together. So it may be like that on the edge. That's why I think it's going to happen.
Oh God!
I think.
Is Terence McKenna really? Is he dead?
Terence McKenna? Oh, yeah.
I had a picture in my head.
Around 2002.
Oh, I imagined that he was still alive. Oh, that's too bad.
Oh, no. No.
Well, that's the thing that you could tell the listeners, if in case you don't know who Terence McKenna is, go to YouTube and look up Terence McKenna. You'll find that there are people who adore him and pay great attention to him. They recorded everything he ever said in front of people.
Yes.
And they set these things to music, and they turn the reverb all the way up to make it sound crazy and creepy, and they make videos, psychedelic videos attached to this guy. He's the inventor of
I've downloaded them. Listen to him.
He's the inventor of the concept of machine elves. Look up machine elves, and you'll be pointed straight at Terence McKenna. DMT machine elves.
He refers to the hallucinations on magic mushrooms with the Sami people, the Laplanders, and how Christmas came out of that, and the little elves.
Christmas.
So he says he's not really the originator of that. That's just what he calls them.
Like the giant leprechaun in. I'm trying to think of the name of the American Gods, a TV series that just had its first year.
I couldn't watch it. I watched the first two shows. I could watch it. Too violent and crass.
It's Neil Gaiman.
It's well done, I know.
It's Neil Gaiman. Anyway, the leprechaun, he's a giant man. And the guy says, "You're kind of big for a leprechaun, aren't you?" He says, "That's a stereotype. The guy's like a 7-foot-tall leprechaun."
Well, there's someone else I discovered on YouTube recently, Isaac Arthur, and he does this deep future scientific conjectural lectures that are just mind-blowing and beautifully done.
Say his name again.
Very intelligent and very enjoyable,
I didn't catch the name. Say his name again, please.
Isaac Arthur.
Arthur.
Yeah, Isaac Arthur.
ISAAC Arthur. ARTHUR?
Yes, and I already posted some links a day or two ago on the Mendocino list, and every so often I find another video. He has tons of excellent videos, absolutely brilliant. I mean, so inspiring and very well done. The conjecturing is very scientific. Nothing.
I found another.
About it.
Speaking of which, I found another comic book series that I think you might enjoy. It's called Saga.
Saga, S-A-G-A?
Yeah, they're like 26 books.
Okay.
It's a graphic, it's a comic book series. It's about war in outer space between two kinds of people, and there are actually other kinds of people involved. It's a very populated
Well, I'll look them up.
universe.
There's a lot of things you can't find on turret sites, and I couldn't find the Rick and Morty comics on Pirate Bay or Turret.
Oh, you can read those straight off the web.
Well, I did. I found it through a regular search. I sent you the link for that.
Yeah, I can't keep up with all the things. I know you sent me some things. I read like 90% of what you send to me, and I think you ought to be happy with that.
I'm more than happy. It was just 5% or 1%. I'm the same way. It's information overload. If you want to keep learning and growing, there's so much out there. You can only get a drop in the bucket, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, especially if you like, comic books. So, Zeke, I'm gonna play some music, and then I'm gonna go forward here. 1:30. You called it a half an hour ago, and that's fine. There's no problem.
All right, thank you very much.
Next week I'll be doing my show from Juanita's, and I have to limit the number of times the telephone rings there because there are neighbors, and Juanita's trying to sleep, and the sound of the caller comes out into the room because I haven't built a quiet thing yet. So send me your story, or send me a link to the story you want me to read next week.
Yeah, it'll be the second horror story with my friend Don. It's called The Screaming Machete.
The Screaming Machete. That's
yes.
Okay.
Well, it's like a skin in the box.
Because you're one of those people who likes you like to start Halloween, ramp up to Halloween in a long, slow learning curve.
Well, I've been eager to put these stories out. I got tired of waiting for Halloween, so I thought, well, why not? And this is the skin in the box tale. It's all true. What I wrote about. All right. You have a great rest of the show now.
Okay. See you later, Zeke. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.